Go for it, Steve.
All right, great. So let's go ahead. Welcome to a conversation today about parenting and practicing. It's one of the things that are near and dear to my heart, which is how to help lawyers be able to balance their life from a practice perspective and a parenting perspective. If you got a question, you can tell that Abby and I are wrestling through some of the tech issues. Just post something in the GoToWebinar chat box and she'll pay attention and catch it, or raise your hand and we'll catch it. So let's keep going, Abby. Thank you. Yeah, Abby, just move to the next slide. You have a form called Learning to Action, so that should be in your GoToWebinar chat box. You can download this form if you want to go ahead and take notes on it. It's designed on the left-hand side. If there's an idea that you hear that you want to use it. At the end, we'll go through and identify your top 3 ideas and next action. So we'll just do that at the end. We'll do a quick little sprint. It's one thing to come to a workshop, whether face-to-face or virtual. It's another thing to actually come to a workshop and take some actionable steps out of it. And that's my goal for you today, is to be able to take some actionable steps out of it. With that, let's go ahead and move forward, Abby. So this is me. My name is Steve Riley. As you can tell, we have a webcam issue as well. I am an attorney. I've done a lot of things in the practice of law, and I'm also a partner in Atticus. And our company is probably the foremost consulting firm and helps solo and small firm attorneys grow their practice. Our tagline is, helping lawyers have a great practice and a great life. And the primary reason I'm here today is to really support you in trying to find a balance between your practice and parenting, which is one of the, like I said, one of the passions that I bring to the process. It's one of the things I really enjoy. So Abby, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Terrific. So you always have this challenge of how to balance parenting and practicing. It's perfect, Abby. And really one of the things I want to get you to think about is that you'll never find a balance that's perfect. You'll always feel a tug. The goal here, and Abby, just move it forward for me. The goal here, as we look at as you look through this, is to try and find harmony between parenting and practicing. You're never going to be perfect at either. And probably the biggest challenge that you'll develop as you start with young kids to older children, whether you're a single parent or you're, in a relationship, is trying to find a good sweet spot between the two. And you'll feel tremendous tug, and that tug will be guilt, anxiety, things that you wish you could be doing better, things that people think you should be doing better. My father, who never practiced law, my father-in-law, who never practiced law, my mother and my mother-in-law all have different opinions about how my wife and I should be raising our children. And so we have really tried to work at finding harmony on being a good parent, like what works for us. And at the same time, a lot of lawyers that I was raised by as a young lawyer, I've been practicing for over 30 years, had opinions about how many hours I should work as a young attorney. As an associate, I had mandatory Sunday hours and mandatory Saturday hours. How's that for a weird thing? And so when I was practicing myself, my goal was never to have that kind of pressure put on the attorneys that worked with me or for me. So as you think about this, I want you to think about the sweet spot between practicing and parenting. You can't do everything, and you can't do everything well, but you can choose magically, that's the word, choose the things that really will make harmony for you, that will make you feel great. And that's some of the things that we're going to do today, is focus on the techniques and strategies to help you do that. And today's a really quick overview conversation. So let's go ahead and move to the next one, Abby, please. So parenting, Abby, let's keep moving. Perfect, parenting. So one of the things, one of the strategies I strongly recommend, that as a parent, when you look at your work week, as an attorney, I know you have trials, hearings, different commitments, but when you look at your work week, one of the things that I strongly recommend is that you plan your family time first before you plan out your work week. So as you look, you put in the big rocks, family time first in your calendar. Most lawyers I know do this backwards. They put in the family time after they plan out the work week. So my first recommendation is to plan the family time first. The second thing is I strongly recommend, especially, and I usually do this on the weekends. For me, this was usually a Sunday, is to plan a family meeting, a time where you actually spend time as a family discussing everything from logistics to commitments. Now, this depends on the age of your children. When my kids were young, it wasn't a big deal. But when my kids got older, carpooling here and there, managing sporting commitments, academic commitments, jobs, things like that, having a family meeting between my spouse and I was critical. And then planning a family activity night was a big deal. So making sure that everyone protected a family night was a big deal as the kids got older. And then, of course, one of the fun things that we discussed over dinner is that sometimes dinner became a throwaway, and that you just got to dinner and you were like, oh my God, thank God I got here. I made dinner. I got to dinner on time. One of the things that you can do as a parent is actually create a really nice family culture by what you discuss over dinner. And so these are three things that I strongly recommend you consider. Number one, discussing the wins of the day. So what happened great today? What was a thing that was a great thing that happened for you today at school? Why did you like that? And it's amazing how the kids will, once you start to get them to move to what are the good things that happened during the day, they start to look forward to the family time, having time with you at dinner and discussing these things, because they get excited about things that happen great that they want to share with you. And typically, my experiences, especially with my son, I had to get one out of him. Once I got one out of him, then the next one would flow, then the next one would flow. And so you want to think about how you can create this really interesting culture over dinner. And it's going to take a little bit of time. It takes about 30 days to develop a habit. And so I would recommend that you start this just gently and just say, what's one great thing that happened today for you? And usually people bring complaints and frustrations to dinner, which makes it kind of a downer experience for everyone, especially the kids. But if you as the parent, the leader of the family, bring, this is a great thing happened to me today, and you get to share it. And I don't care what it is, you just got to find something great. And then with the kids, you ask them, what was a great thing that happened to you? Not did a great thing, what great thing happened to you that day? And I typically like to get one dedicated family getaway per quarter if I can pull it off. If not, at least once a month, a good dedicated concentrated weekend with the kids, doing something that the kids really, really enjoy and they find fun to do. So when you look at this, the first thing that a lot of lawyers make a mistake is they calendar everything with their family after they calendar their work week. So strategy one is to have that dedicated time. And in this example, we have 5 different ways that you could do that easily, cost efficiently, and simply. All right, Abby, let's look at the next slide, please. Now, this is a sample of a family meeting agenda. Once again, it depends on the age of your children. I usually open up the family meeting agenda. I think I started doing this when my kids were pretty much about 5 and 3. My daughter's 21 now, my son's 19. So about 5 and 3 was when I was doing this with the kids. We usually see if there's any follow-up items or items that we need to follow up on from last week. We discuss goals as a family, and sometimes with the family it was discussing things that were, upcoming events like holidays, things we're doing with grandparents, things that we'd like to do as a family. My wife and I typically planned about 1 year out with kids, and we talked to them about that. Sometimes the kids would get it, and sometimes the kids didn't. And then we'd look at the week ahead. Are there any scheduling conflicts that we need to work through with the kids? Or are there any travel issues? My business, I have to travel a lot, so we always had to work through traveling issues. Where the school events or needs, there's nothing worse than the kids walking in and going, as they're getting ready to go to school, and going, oh, by the way, I need a tray of cupcakes, or oh, I need poster board. I forgot to get poster board, or whatever it is. So getting ahead of things that they're going to need. And then a family plan, like there's anything that you have planned as a family that you're doing that week that you want to make sure you protect. and discuss as a family. So Abby, let's keep moving on this, please. Thank you. And then what time, and this is always a challenge, what time to get the kids to bed on school nights, any discussion around schoolwork or grades, household or chore issues, calendar reviews. And then one of the things that a lot of my clients love is the famous 15-minute room cleaning sprint. So if you're trying to teach your kids to clean rooms, if you say, I want your room cleaned, that's a different expectation. They don't know what you mean by that. So one of the things I've discovered with the kids was to do 15-minute sprints. So a 10-minute, just telling me it's going to be a 15-minute sprint. All we're going to do is work as hard as we can for 15 minutes to clean the room. And it was amazing how many 2-hour working blocks I could get out of my son in 15-minute windows, because he would enjoy working for 15 minutes, take a break, then work for another 15 minutes. So I found this to be a very effective way of getting chores done and things done. And then, of course, I always ask the kids, so what did you learn from that? What did you learn from your 15-minute sprint? What did you learn from this? And it's always interesting what they would share with me, what they learned. So this is just a simple family meeting agenda. I can have, depending on the age of the kids, depending where you're at in life, depending on what you're doing, this could be easily adjusted to, based on the age of the kids and what you're wrestling with in your family. And then practicing. So we just kind of looked at the family side first. Let's talk about practicing. These are just some simple tips from a practicing perspective. Plan your work week after, and I really, really strongly encourage after you plan your family time. 2, I'm going to recommend using a paper planner. And I found that in my career, I've done through case management systems. We used, years ago, I used Time Matters, then I used My Case. Now my firm has moved over to a different system away from My Case. So we see that our lives are controlled by these electronic calendars. And the problem with electronic calendars, like jumping into a river, you just get into it and you start swimming. And if you're really trying to be cash flow focused or goal focused, you have to break away from the gravitational pull of your calendar and actually take a step back and use a paper planner. Now, in our company, Atticus, we have our own custom design planner, but you don't have to use our planner. There's tons and tons of planners out there that you can get on Amazon. Everything from the Panda Planner to the Full Focus Planner to Covey, Stephen Covey, Franklin Covey, excuse me, 7 Habits to Organize. They're all terrific things. Or, whatever works for you. But I like, as a lawyer, to get you away from electronics for a brief period of time. Whether, get away from your phone, get away from your computer screen, and look at your week and then plan out your week, because it does a couple of good things for you. Number 1, it allows you to make better decisions. 2, it allows you to focus and think about your week in a different way, and allows you to reflect and learn about what works from week to week. So from a planning perspective, I couldn't encourage you enough to actually start to develop a habit of working with a paper planner. Great. Now, the next thing we're going to recommend, and this is very tough for parents who practice. It is tough. And that is what we like to call the oxygen mask. So the oxygen mask story. So if you've ever been on an airplane before, and the flight attendant goes through the emergency protocols that are mandated by the FAA, they'll say if there's an emergency, your oxygen mask drops from the ceiling. Well, the person they recommend that you put it on first is yourself. And one of the things that I think that I can encourage you to do as a parent and a practitioner is to prioritize your own self-care. Because if you don't care for yourself and you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your family, you're not going to be able to take care of your clients. It's going to be really, really hard for you to carry the ball over an extended period of time, both as a practitioner and a parent. So the next thing I'll recommend from a practicing perspective or a parenting perspective is to start prioritizing self-care. So Abby, let's move to the next slide. And the reason I really strongly recommend this is, everyone's watching you. Everyone's watching. Your family's watching you. The kids are watching you. Your um, team is watching you. So whatever you need to do to take care of yourself spiritually, I've been meditating for many, many years. So I find meditation to be a great spiritual practice for me. Whatever you need to do to take care of yourself from a nutrition exercise perspective is crucial. You don't have to be crazy. You don't have to run marathons. But just to manage stress, you probably need at least a 30-minute walk during the day if you're not doing anything intense exercise-wise. Just start somewhere. And then managing sleep, relaxation, and rejuvenation. People as lawyers pay you for your judgment. They don't pay you for your documents. They don't pay you for going to court and beating on someone. Really what they pay you for is your judgment, your ability to solve complex problems. And if you're burned out, you can't do that. Now, as we start to draw our brief little conversation for today closed, I'm going to suggest that you look at these ideas from the perspective of how do you implement these changes. And the key to making critical changes in your life is really going to be successful time management. And if your days are packed like this little jelly bean jar and your life is going to be out of control, it's going to be very hard to make many changes. So one of the strong recommendations that we have is to help you start to make some adjustments to your time management. You have to be thinking about how do you manage time and how do you say no. Now, two quick ways as Abby moves the slides forward is one of the quick things as a parent I'm going to recommend that you do is go on a volunteer diet. So you have to be very choosy as a parent how many different things you get volunteered for and the amount of things that you volunteer for yourself. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you just only volunteer for one thing per year. I don't care if it's a board, I don't care if it's something for the bar, I don't care if it's something for your school, I don't care if it's coaching your kids' little league team. But one of the big challenges that we have as practitioners is that we get over volunteered or we over volunteer. So if you really want to put yourself in a better time management frame is to go on a volunteer diet, one thing per year. The other thing is from a practice perspective. There's nothing that cleans out your practice better than saying no to bad cases and firing bad clients. If I give you one piece of advice of today's webinar, is to go and immediately fire that worst client that's in your practice that's making you crazy. And I understand, if you're litigating a court permission to withdraw, I've been there, done that. Been there, done that, and have the court tell me no. So I totally get that. But I'd like you to consider that probably the two best things that you could do is do yourself a favor and put yourself on a volunteer diet and start saying no to bad cases and bad clients. Get rid of them and don't let them come into the practice. So as you start to look to grow your practice, you've got to make some room in your day to have some growth strategies. Abby, let's go ahead and move forward. Now, here's the exercise, and just because of time constraint, we're probably not going to have to spend a lot of time with this today, but if you could download this, if you haven't downloaded already, we've discussed probably 10, 15, 20 different ideas, and I'd like you just to kind of jot those down. And then when we're done with the webinar, pick out your top 3. And then as you pick out your top 3, write down your next actions. Abby, let's go ahead and move to the next slide. I want to see, I'm pretty sure I thought we had an example of this on here. Yep, perfect. And then when you're done with your top 3, I usually recommend that you pick your most important next action. And this is, for me in this example, this hypothetical is call my spouse and set up time to talk about my ideas and what we can do first. And then think about what's your takeaway from today's conversation. If you don't have a takeaway, I'm going to give you a moment. I'm going to encourage you to just take a moment and think about it. What's the thing that I learned from today? Because there's always something that you can learn if you look at it. And learning is really what we want here, learning in action. And writing it is a critical component of this. It helps your brain start to do the problem-solving function that it's designed to do. But writing engages your prefrontal cortex, which allows you to do really great problem solving. So writing's important. So Abby, we'll let them do that. Let's go ahead and you and I move forward on our next component of this. Terrific. And so what I'd like to do is also extend an offer. We are teaching a more extensive and in-depth workshop on July 25th from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you would like to do a deeper dive on this, the workshop price is $4.99, but if you use the code JOY, J-O-Y, all caps, you can get a discount up to $199 for that. And we'll do a deeper dive. Hopefully, depending on the audience, we can have Michelle Fuller and Carrie Moss, who are both very, very successful attorneys. Both are terrific moms and bring the feminine perspective as, you know, practicing attorneys who are moms. Michelle Fuller at one point was a single mom practicing with 4 children. So she really had a pretty intense time management approach, I guess you'd want to say. She's able to grow a phenomenal practice, only working basically from, I believe, 9 to 3:30. And once the kids went on the bus, she was there to get the kids off the bus. Carrie Moss brilliantly did a fantastic schedule where she didn't work Friday. She spent the Fridays volunteering at her boys' school. She has 2 boys. One of them's a phenomenal athlete. Well, they're both great athletes, but one's being looked at by Division I schools as a football player. So she's really done a phenomenal job. And she's the managing partner of a fantastic estate planning elder law practice. So if, depending on how much audience we get, we'll see if we can recruit the 2 of them to come and co-teach with us that day, because they have a particular perspective that's unique from me. And with that, Abby, let's go ahead and bring it to a quick close if that works for you. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. They'll have to post those in the chat box or raise hands. And Abby, unfortunately, I can't see the chat box. So you're going to have to check and see if there's any questions there.
No chat so far.
Okay, well then let's go ahead and pull it for a close for today. I apologize that we had the technical snafus. You know, Abby is doing a phenomenal job, and unfortunately, this was her first webinar, right, Abby?
Right.
And it worked out fine. It worked out just fine. So the fact that they didn't get to see me on webcam probably is to my advantage, and probably to their advantage. So with that, let's go ahead and draw it for a close. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending, and I hope you found this to be a simple, short, and useful webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.